Can everyone hear me? All right, good. So thank you, Rebecca. My name's Henry Shapiro. I'm a product manager here at New Relic for Insights. I also work on NRDB. I've maybe spoken with you on the phone before about Insights. Apologies in advance for not necessarily getting your features done. So like Rebecca said, I'm going to fill up probably about 32 of my 35 minutes with this safe harbor slide, so we'll just sit here in silence for a little while and go through that. Just breathe in the safe harbor, feel it in your bones. All right. As I mentioned, my name's Henry. That's me. That's a dog. I've been at New Relic for about 3 years, and actually that whole time I've been working on Insights. You heard Lou earlier today talk about Rubicon, the sort of baby beta Insights, and I've watched it grow into an adult human product of sorts as well. So it's been really exciting to watch the impact on our strategy. It's been really exciting to see the impact it's had on our customers. I'm from New York City originally, so I'm an East Coaster by blood, so if I kind of devolve into just being a smartass throughout this presentation, it's probably because of that, and you can just kind of nudge me and tell me to come back to the West Coast. Also, just a small note, I don't know how many of you use Jive internally, but just to let you know, if you see Lou walking around and you see an opportunity to maybe take him down a peg or two, you can let him know Henry's 2,000 Jive points ahead of you right now. He's got to publish some more content, Lou. Get with the program. All right, so actually I think Lou's keynote, as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, this is actually really teeing up what I'm going to talk about today really well, because he talked a lot about how digital businesses are sort of managing change in this sort of new environment where your complexity is raised, where there's an even kind of greater need to be data-driven in the way that you're making decisions. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to talk about this sort of dilemma that I think digital businesses are in, where they're thinking about how to invest in sustaining innovation versus expanding innovation. We're going to talk about, of course, how New Relic and Insights are sort of helping our customers as well as us internally to better understand how to prioritize and make decisions. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the future, because I do love talking about the future, and it's FutureStack, and I already showed you the safe harbor slide, so we're good there. So with that, does anyone know who this guy is? Who is it? That's Clayton Christensen. You win the prize. I'm not sure what the prize is yet, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, Clayton Christensen, super smart dude. He is a Harvard Business School professor. He wrote a book in 1997 called The Innovator's Dilemma. The Innovator's Dilemma was sort of this idea that as an incumbent business or as a business that had a lot of success, let's say you're doing super well with a product that you've released to the market, you're always sort of at risk effectively of being disrupted by, at the time, what he considered to be like a disruptive player, meaning someone who could come in and do what you were doing or nullify what you were doing for less money. Right? And so he talked a lot about the importance of balancing change in your organization and this sort of dilemma of whether to invest in the status quo or to kind of invest in new markets and invest in the future. But a lot has changed since 1997. And I think one of the key things, I mean, this dilemma still exists, right? We're still, as line of business owners or whatever role you have in your business, you're still trying to balance, and prioritize what type of change you invest in. But the nature of what it means to be a disruptive company, I think, has changed. And I think the main way in which it's changed is that these days, and I actually am proof positive of this, you can go out on AWS and get a T2 Micro and get 10 terabytes of S3 space and spend $300 a month, and you've got yourself, basically the kind of the initial starting points of a business. So this isn't really about cost anymore. Right? Software is not necessarily about who's got the cheapest option, right? It's about who can deliver the best experience to their customers and who can scale effectively. And I mean scale not just in the sense of scaling to millions of users, but also in the sense of providing, complementary services and ecosystem of services around the product that you're releasing. So it's really about that customer experience, and it's really about scaling in terms of being a disruptive player in the industry. And to contextualize this, and I know the iPhone is often talked about when we talk about disruptive products, but when you think about the way Clayton Christensen would think about a disruptive product, the iPhone was not that, right? It was not the first smartphone, not by a long shot. It wasn't the cheapest by a long shot. It wasn't the most open option. And again, this is sort of a subjective point, but what I think the iPhone brought to market was it had the highest quality of experience, right? As they concentrated and focused on the things that they knew users actually wanted to do with their smartphone, and they optimized around those use cases. And on top of that, they provided a vast amount of scaling, not just in terms of the responsiveness of the device itself, but also in terms of this sort of ecosystem of services around the iPhone, right? If you had an iPhone and you had a MacBook, you had iMessage, you had Mail, you had, iTunes, you had all of these other complementary services that help to sort of scale out that offering. So the nature of disruption has changed, right? This is something I think that we're all sort of seeing, and it's emblemized, I think, in things like, when I have this experience a lot of the time where I'll use Uber for a while, and every so often I'll run into an issue where Uber won't load. And the first thing I do if Uber won't load, because I've got to get a car, is I go to Lyft, and I load up Lyft, and I start using them. And then in 2 weeks, if they have a bad experience, I go right back to using Uber. So this is a real thing, right? We feel it as consumers. If the experience is crappy and if the scaling isn't there, we're going to go to another offering. And I think to kind of lead into that, I think we talked about how hard it is to build great software today, and Lou talked about that during his keynote. But in a lot of ways, if you really think about it, we're actually living in an era where it's never been easier to build or release software, right? The infrastructure is there, there's services and the shoulders of giants that you can stand on top of to build whatever it is that you want to build. But as a result, consumers have a lot of options, right? If they don't like your service, they can always bounce off and go to another one. And so not only is it expected that you're delivering on sort of innovation and expansion for your product, in terms of the customer experience and scaling, but also the pace of that innovation has to be a lot faster. You have to be able to do all of this, a lot faster for your customers. And similarly, the quality of that digital experience for the consumer is a lot more important. So what this means for digital businesses, to sort of tie it all together, digital businesses have to be able to balance the type of change that they're prioritizing. And I know this sounds sort of very basic, but it's a really key point, I think, to understanding what it's like to be in a software business, right? You have to be able to invest in things like scaling and improving that customer experience, making sure that your features work the way that you expect them to, but you also need to be able to know how and when to invest in net new changes, right? Building new architectures, or rebuilding your front end, or building new features. And you have to be able to do this at scale, and you have to be able to do it really, really quickly. So businesses are always sort of, someone said this looked like Chuck Yeager from The Right Stuff, but it's not. I think it's just a guy cleaning up a shop. But really it's this type of thing, right? Cleaning up, kind of maintaining, keeping the lights on, versus this kind of thing, which is really all about building new architectures and releasing new products to your consumers. And what this means, and actually Rebecca, I think, said it really well, right? Ideas are cheap, right? It's really easy to come up with great ideas about how you could improve your software. But digital businesses cannot afford, because of this pace, because of the nature of disruption, they can't afford to waste resources on change that isn't valuable for their business. If you're going to fix a bug, you should make sure that it's a bug that's actually moving the needle for your customers, right? Don't just fix it because it's a bug. You can't fix every single bug. If you're going to build a new feature or improve a feature, you should make sure that it's the right feature and it's for the right customers and that it's actually moving the needle for your business. And as a result, you need to really use data, right? In order to feel confidence in those decisions, in order to feel like you're not just making decisions based on your gut or based on intuition or based on an idea, you have to be able to use data. And this is kind of that point in I think, the presentation where folks are like, okay, well, I've heard this before, right? Use data, make decisions, great. But what does that really mean? What does it really mean to be a data-driven business? My view is that being data-driven, and we heard this today with digital being a team sport, right? Being data-driven is more than just having data, right? I can look at any organization and I can look at their marketing department, I can look at their sales department, I can look at their engineering department, and every single one of those departments has data about how their customers are engaging, or what sales look like, or how many errors are occurring in the application. But if that data is siloed, you're basically having all of these different parts of the organization that might themselves be data-driven, but that aren't kind of moving in a cohesive direction. They're not sharing information across these functional silos. And so it's my view that being data-driven is as much about having a system and having a process for analyzing and sharing data as it is actually just having the data in the first place. And to contextualize this, just kind of thinking about what we do at New Relic here, I've got this sort of shadowy enterprise over here called the business. And that could be, anyone, right? Product management, sales, right? Anyone who's not sort of on the technical side of the house. And they have a bunch of valuable information They know which customers they're targeting. They know who they're trying to optimize their business for. They know which customers are at risk. And that information sort of living in that world, and they're hoping to run their business around those metrics. Developers, operations, and IT, they understand site performance. And they understand how the site's actually scaling. But they don't necessarily know who they should be optimizing the site for, or what types of business metrics they're supposed to be chasing. And so in order for folks to really become a data-driven business, you need to be able to unify these two silos within your organization, right? The side of the business that's focused on particular customers or focused on particular business outcomes needs to be aligned with the development and operations groups so that they're prioritizing work based on what the business needs and vice versa. And this is really where we get into, I think, what I see with our customers using New Relic, right? We aspire to be the first best place to look to understand your digital business. And we use this term understand, but really, I think what we mean is prioritize, right? Or make decisions, right? What's the use of having the data if you're not going to do anything useful with it? And one of the key things that our customers are using our digital intelligence platform for is to tie that application performance, those two sides of the story that I just talked about, to tie application performance to those business outcomes so that you can better understand how performance is impacting your business. This is something, there's all sorts of statistics like this out there on the web, right? I can Google and tell you that at a macro level, a 1-second delay in page response can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. And that's useful in a sense. It's useful for understanding the industry. It's useful for understanding the core concept, which is sort of intuitive, that bad performance impacts the user experience and impacts your revenue. But it doesn't really help you, right? It doesn't really help you to understand how your business is being impacted by performance specifically, because your business is unique, right? Your business has its own unique problems. It has its own unique customers. And so for you to be able to optimize your business in terms of that performance impact, you need to go beyond these sort of macro level statistics and really ask questions about what's happening within your business. So when we think about those questions, we kind of break it down into 3 different groups. And you can sort of map this along a maturity curve or not, but really it's all about, am I open for business, right? Just like Lou said, it's that kind of concept of, are my doors locked? Are the servers completely down? Is the front page of my site even up? Can people even engage with my content at this point? How are customers actually engaging, right? Are they using the features that I've released? Are they using particular browsers that we're not optimizing the site for? And then finally, how's my business actually doing? Right? Are we seeing more monthly active users than we were last month? Are we seeing more errors on the checkout page this month versus last month? Right? Being able to measure these things for your business in particular is really critical to your success. And to talk about this sort of in the context of the digital intelligence platform, and I'll go into some very specific use cases in a moment, this is really what a lot of our customers look like. Right, you've got real customers over here on the left, along with these synthetic customers that are scripts running against your browsers. You've got mobile applications, you've got browser applications, you've got an app server, you've got a web server serving up all of it. You've probably got some on-premise infrastructure. You might have relational databases and NoSQL databases. And New Relic is really there to monitor every end of this customer journey, right? This is a big part of what we're trying to offer with the platform, and that's why we call it a platform, is because it's more than just this sort of collection of products, right? It's actually a way to roll up this entire experience into a cohesive view. So on the back end, we have obviously APM, our oldest and sort of flagship product monitoring your app servers, infrastructure, the belle of the ball, the colossus of clout, whatever other analog you want to apply to it. Obviously a really exciting product for us, showing you real-time metrics about your servers and live change events. And then of course all of our plugins, all of that data ends up in insights, right? So you can actually see all of this data from across the app server down to the infrastructure tier inside of insights in a single dashboard. But on top of that, you can actually see all of the client-side experience as well, right? Because the mobile data, browser data, synthetics data is also all ending up in Insights. So Insights is really this place where all of that data comes together and where you can basically drive toward this idea of business success, right? If you understand your customer journey, if you understand the impact from the moment a customer accesses a page down to the infrastructure affected by that page load, that's something that's really valuable for your business, right? And having that all in one place is really what Insights is all about. So as a customer, this is just sort of a couple of examples of questions that our customers are asking, just to show you that I'm not just blowing smoke, right? This is a query that I ran this morning looking at response times on a checkout page, right? So here I can really easily see for a checkout page, what was the range of responses that our customers are seeing, right? Which gives us a good sense of, are we actually serving up arguably, if you're an e-commerce site, your most critical page, right? Are you serving that up effectively? Similarly, we can dig into things like which errors are people running into on a purchase page, right? If they're going to purchase a product, what specific errors are they running into? And then, of course, with the platform, we also allow you to drill into those errors and actually diagnose at a stack trace level, fixing the problem and actually getting on with business. So we've talked a lot about this at a sort of high level. We've talked about it sort of conceptually. I'm going to talk about one way that we've been using insights internally here for some of the launches that we've been doing over the past few months. So a few months ago, or about a month and a half ago, we launched the Add to Insights, which you heard Lou talk about, as well as this new exploration capability called the Metric Explorer. Has anyone in this room used any of these capabilities? Oh, nice. That's awesome. I can just leave right now. I feel great. So when we were launching this stuff, we I think were really concerned about two things. Me as the product manager, I'm really concerned about adoption. I want to make sure that we've actually made a good investment and that this is actually paying dividends for our customers and that our customers are using it. And if they're not, I want to be able to reach out to them and I want to be able to talk to them about why they might not be using it or what they might be missing. Similarly, the engineers are worried about, they're launching this really high throughput indexing service for metrics. They're launching a high throughput Elasticsearch cluster and trying to optimize that. And I just put Elasticsearch and optimize in the same sentence. And so they're concerned. They're trying to make sure that those metrics are appropriate, right? And that as we scale up, as we release this from 200 customers to 14,000, right, that we see the right throughput numbers that we expect and that we see low latency on searches. So we have a single dashboard that we use as a team for looking at this kind of information. And so you can't really see a lot of it here, so I'll just kind of dig into these more kind of drill down slides. You can see sort of on the left, we're looking at our metric indexing service search time. So we're actually looking at the time that it takes for searches to complete in the Metric Explorer. So that's kind of giving us a sense of what's the range of responses that customers are running into. But we're also looking at things like what's the actual index service response time in terms of indexing the millions of metrics that are coming through that system, right? So we're sort of combining that information with things like user adoption, right? So if I see a particular customer or I see a particular set of customers that I want to reach out to and learn more from, I can do that just by looking at this dashboard. And this is something, that's sort of a high level kind of, high risk, high reward kind of situation. But I think with regard to how we use it internally, we're doing this really on a daily basis. So I don't know, no one in here has probably ever gotten a bug report from someone using Internet Explorer, have they? It's probably never happened. Okay. So one of the things that we do is we monitor browser usage by our customers. And we don't just monitor it for accounts in aggregate, we actually monitor it for our paid customers as well. So we look at things like, hey, for people who are using IE, how many of them are actually paid accounts? And there's not a significant difference here, right? It's 1.25% of all of our accounts are using IE, and then about 4.3% of our paid accounts are using IE. But that's meaningful, right? For a product manager, if you're faced with a decision, or as an engineering manager, if you're faced with a decision of, should we spend the 4 hours to work on this cross-origin request issue with IE, it's really useful to know, how many of my paid customers are actually using IE? Because a lot of the time, those decisions get boiled down to sort of a gut instinct, right? Or we should fix it because that sucks. Or we should fix it because, I don't know, because Internet Explorer is not dead yet. So that's, I think, really what we try to get on our team by using Insights and by using New Relic. And we see this with our customers as well, right? This is actually a large media company who's actually monitoring all of their customers' in-home devices through the app server monitoring with New Relic. And they had this issue before where support would get a ticket, right, from someone saying, hey, my device is broken, I'm not sure what's going on. And they always had an issue around trying to kind of troubleshoot that issue with the customer. So they weren't sure if it was an issue with the device. They weren't sure if it was an issue with that class of devices. They weren't sure if it was an issue with the market itself or with the region. And so this dashboard actually allows the operations team to look at how many tickets are coming in and how many searches are being done by the support team for this particular class of device, so that when a support team escalates an issue to them, they say, yeah, we've been seeing a ton of tickets coming in, because they've got sort of different co-locations for support. Yeah, we've been seeing a ton of tickets come in. We're pretty convinced it's the network and not that particular user's device. So when you think about the experience that customer is going to have, right, talking with that support person, they're not going to go through 30 minutes of troubleshooting. They're going to actually know right off the bat, talking to the support person, yeah, it's not an issue with your device in particular. It's an issue with the market. It's an issue with the network. And similarly, we talked about this with mobile. Application performance and business KPIs sort of in the same lens on the same dashboard. This is a customer who has a number of different KPIs that they're tracking using Insights. And again, just like on Insights, just like on the Insights team, they have engineers who are looking at this dashboard, and they have business people who are looking at this dashboard. Because it's looking at things like, how many payment failures have we had? Because that's an issue for the business, right? If you have a payment failure, that means that no money's being made, or at least less money's being made. And it's not because someone's not buying, it's because the payment is literally failing. And for engineering, that's a really valuable piece of information as well, right? It's a sign that something might need to be fixed in the gateway. And so having this information in one place, this is the kind of thing that folks will put up on a TV around their office so that they can all kind of be on the same page and make decisions sort of in concert. So this is my sort of call to action for these slides is go check out Celebrity Dashboards. I think that Tori Wield is going to be doing it. I'm not sure exactly where or when yet, but take a look on your program and see when it is, because it's going to be awesome. There are going to be actually a lot of customers sharing their stories in the form of dashboards and insights, and I think it's going to be a really, really awesome event, and they'll do an awesome job describing them, so check it out. So where's Insights going? I've talked a lot about managing change in your environment. I've talked a lot about customer use cases. I want to talk a little bit about the future of where we're going with Insights, and I'm not going to do a sort of Gantt chart roadmap here, but I'll kind of walk through some key themes for us over the year. So one of the big things that we're going to be focusing on is really around the flexibility and control over how you can visualize and analyze your data in Insights over the next year. So you've seen this with things like adding the time picker and copying dashboards and the metric explorer, but we're going to continue to really push that cadence throughout the year of releasing features that give our customers a lot more control over how the data is charted. So things like configurable axes and chart colors and the ability to plot metrics and events in the same lens, those sorts of things that really help customers to better analyze and get a better view of their data. Our second goal is really around adoption. There are probably a lot of folks in this room, or maybe a number of folks in this room, who've never used Insights, and actually there's a decent chance that you have access to it as a New Relic customer. We actually provide Insights to most of our paid customers at New Relic. So whether or not you are sort of quote unquote paying for Insights, you probably have access to it and you can probably use it. And we really want to see, and I have the data to prove this, so I know that it's not one for one right now. I want to see all of our customers using Insights as a way to tie this application performance back to their business outcomes, because I think it's a really big, important point for you as a digital business for understanding how this data, sort of how it helps you to make decisions across these different silos. And then the third theme, you've seen this with crash analytics, you've seen it with, or you will see it with infrastructure, you've seen it with error analytics, which was released on APM, synthetics is the same way. Over time, we're folding more and more of the flexibility that you get within Insights in terms of that sort of filtering and faceting and kind of asking ad hoc questions about the data. We're building a lot more of that into our core products. So you're just going to see that, I think, as a theme over time. Ideally, we want to get to a point where, yeah, Insights is an awesome place to go create dashboards. It's an awesome place to bring all the data together. But ultimately, we want to be at a place where every single one of our products has the ability to give you that same degree of flexibility, right? So we're really pushing toward that as well. So to wrap up, I want to kind of leave you with a couple of thoughts. So the first is, obviously, how are you thinking today about prioritizing product improvements and innovations, right? What processes do you have in place? Who's bringing that data to the table? How are you sharing it? How are you analyzing it? Do you have a common language for speaking to those types of decisions? And then secondly, I want you to think about how you can better bridge those gaps. If you see gaps in your organization between these different functional silos, if there are parts of the business that you feel like man, this part of the business, if they communicated with developers or with operations more, or if developers and operations would communicate with this part of the business more, we would get better outcomes out of what we're building. Thinking about how you can bridge those gaps, I think, is really imperative. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for your time, and thanks for coming, and have a great day. Appreciate it.